Good morning, good morning. Welcome to day 4 of my parent challenge, Resilience After COVID. I'm glad that you're able to come and join me, whether you're here this morning or watching a little later. I was inspired to come outside today. It's such a beautiful morning. It's still a little chilly, still had to wear my jacket, but the sun is starting to come up and definitely wanted to be able to come outside. So today is the last day of part 1, which is we're really laying the foundation of our parenting practices. There's so much that we could be doing, I know. But I could be here for 2 years doing this, but I really want to outline the basic foundation that we need to move forward, right? To build that architecture for our parenting. And I know some of you are itching to get at the daily frustrations that are weighing you down and those behaviors, and I'm going to definitely get there, but I just need to make sure, that we have that foundation. I feel the overwhelm. I definitely do, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this. I mean, I was in COVID for 2 weeks, and it was hard. I was isolated from my kids and came out of isolation once I was feeling better, and right away wanted to go back into quarantine. I get the helplessness and overwhelm that we have as parents sometimes. It can be a lot, especially right now. I wish some days that I could just guilt-free let my kids surf the internet and be on Netflix and play video games all day. It would certainly cause a lot more peace and harmony in the house. But this is a really important journey for me. And I think for a lot of you, if you're joining me, it's important for you as well. And we do feel shame and guilt, and that's telling us something, right? We want to be good parents to our kids. And so that's why I wanted to do this challenge. And I don't want to jump ahead too quick, because I think we often do that. We see a blog or tips and tricks from or psychologists or other parents or all of these types of things, and we do them and things might go great for a couple of days and then everything falls apart again. And so that's why I want to take our time and use these first few days to really lay that foundation so you have a solid roadmap. That's that GPS system that I was talking about, right? Because often we don't have that piece, and it really will help us in the long term. So for today, the final piece that we're going to cover in this foundation building is to assess how well we know child development, right? And how well do we know that if our expectations fit where our kids are at developmentally? Because our level of parent knowledge is critical. It directly relates to our parenting practices and behaviors. So for example, the research has showed, parents with a strong understanding of development, they interact more positively with their kids. They can better respond to their kids' attempts to engage them and interact with them. They're in tune with their kids, more sensitive to their needs, and better able to respond to their emotional needs. They have age-appropriate expectations for their kids, and they can use more effective disciplinary practices, and they're better able to manage those behaviors when they have those understandings. And just a better quality home life, right? When we have that understanding of child development and what those expectations are, we're not frustrating our kids so much, rather than if we didn't have that understanding. So the bottom line is parents, they either act positively or negatively towards their kids based on, well, first of all, our own stress levels, but it also is influenced by our knowledge, our understanding, our thoughts, our values, and our understanding of their development, which is why I wanted to lay this foundation. And I've worked with a lot of parents who have a hard time knowing, what should I be doing this for my kid, or what should I be expecting from my kid? I find with younger kids, we often underestimate their abilities, right? I think that we're doing a lot of things that they could be doing for themselves. I mean, I've got a video of my 2-year-old, well, she's not 2 anymore, when she was 2, at the stove, holding the frying pan and making an omelet, right? And yes, there's a risk of burning herself only once, and I'm there and I'm monitoring, but we are able to do those things. So if your kids can work a computer or an iPad or an iPhone, they know how to use a washing machine, for example. Conversely, I find with our teens, we're putting way too many expectations on them, right? Whether it's parents or teachers, there's just way too many expectations on our teens. Now, if you have a teen, I have a teen. If you have a teen, and even if you don't, you're going to have a teen, the teenage brain is fascinating, and you should really have an understanding of what's going on. They, for example, cannot process risk and consequences the same way as we do. So for example, if I said, is it a good idea to set your hair on fire? Obviously, right away, we know that's not a good idea. But teens actually have to think about it. It takes them longer to decide if that's a good idea or not than like an 8-year-old child. And if there's peers there, if there's friends there, then they get caught up in, that's such an awesome idea. Yeah, let's set our hair on fire. Let's jump off the roof. And you know what? We should film it. And if we get 1,000 likes, so their brain doesn't process the risk. It's processing the anticipation of the excitement that's going to come. So whether it's the likes, and that's why we get sucked into social media, because we're looking at how many people looked at our likes or liked, you know, what we wanted to post. So even if we tell our kids, dude, that's a bad idea, you know, you could break a bone, they get caught up. They can't think that way. So they'll think, it's not going to happen to me, right? And so they've got this invincibility sort of disorder. It's not going to happen to me. So then when we're taking them to emergency and we're like, what were you thinking? And they're like, I wasn't thinking. They're telling the truth. They weren't thinking. Kids aren't processing those situations and those decisions the same way as us. So asking our kids, what were you thinking, is probably the worst thing that we can do, because they really weren't thinking, and they can't answer those. It's just going to frustrate them. So, you know, we really need to understand what's going on for our kids and where their brain development is, for example, so that we can practice parenting effectively. And we're not putting more stress on them and just creating anxiety and potentially leading to depression, right? Teens are very vulnerable for these types of mood and anxiety disorders. And oftentimes it's just the amount of stress that's going on. So, you know, if we get frustrated, they get frustrated, and then we have a kid who's resenting us because, you know, we're demanding and nagging and all of these, and then if they're resenting us, they're not going to be cooperative. So that's why I really wanted to focus for today on understanding, do you know what are appropriate expectations for your kids? Now, of course, every child grows and develops at different paces, but there's general patterns that we can expect to see. And so in today's workbook handouts, I've provided a brief description of each of the different ages and stages so that you can have an understanding of what skills your kids should be developing and how you can support their potential. Now, it is just a brief overview, so I do have a couple of other links where you can go specifically to your kid's age and look at what you can be expecting. And again, if you are concerned, everyone, you know, some kids are slower, some kids are faster. If you are concerned, make sure you go to a doctor or a professional just to make sure your child is developing as expected. And if not, you know, we don't want that gap to widen. So for today, your challenge is to figure out what are reasonable expectations for your kids based on where they are at developmentally. And if you have a child with executive functioning deficits, for example, so ADHD, you know, their brain is going to be even more delayed. So those decision making and emotion regulation, all of those things, you know, we have to have different expectations for those kiddos. This is a really tough topic, so feel free to put questions in the comment boxes if you're not sure, you know, what's reasonable, or email me. I'm actually going to have a live question and answer session on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. So here live. If you can't make it at that time, I would love to have you, and you can ask me questions. If you can't make it at that time, or just in case, send me your questions beforehand so I can make sure that I address them, and then when you watch the video later. But otherwise, thank you all for joining me today. I came outside, so hopefully you're inspired to go outside too, depending on where the weather is at, wherever you are. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.